Hey, baby, Stevie Van Zandt here. You are listening to Fab 4 Free For All.
And welcome to another edition of the Fab 4 Free For All, the weekly or whenever we want to put it up show about the Beatles and Beatles related. I am your moderator, Mitch Axelrod, for this special show, and joining me, as they always do, unfortunately, are
Rob Leonard
and
Tony Chihuardo.
And you may see that we have a fourth person here, just some stranger who decided to get on our Zoom, but we'll let him in anyway. You know him from the E Street Band, you know him from the Sopranos, you know him as a solo artist, and soon an author, a book coming out in September, I believe, and a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. We are so honored to have with us tonight Steven Van Zandt. Everybody, welcome to Fab 4 Free For All, Steven.
Boys, how are you?
Good, man.
We're hanging in there.
Doing all right.
You forgot that he's a radio host also.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could have went on for a half hour about all the stuff he does, but we only have a certain amount of time here, and we do have to plug an incredible new record and CD, DVD that he has called Macca To Macca, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But we want to, I heard you on Ken Dashow's show. We love Ken, and I heard the Magical Mystery Tour, and I said we have to have him on the show. That was just, really great. So I have to ask you, you've played for hundreds of thousands of people in stadiums all over the world, and you end up in a little dump basement in Liverpool playing for about 100 people. How does a guy from New Jersey end up at the Cavern?
Well, I think they squeezed about 250 in that day. It was pretty packed. That's a long story. How did I get from here to there? Been a wonderful trip now that you mention it, Yeah, that particular thing started with the English tour. I probably had the most productive 3 years of my life, 2017, 18, and 19, which is why I have not minded being home this year. Really running around, and we had a very productive 3 years and put out 6 album packages, which was, really quite productive for me. I'm very happy about that. And a 7th coming in June.
Wow.
Summer anniversary. Yeah. So it started really flying into the beginning of the English tour, that leg of the tour. I come in late because I was filming, I was fulfilling one of my great dreams of my life the night before, filming with Martin Scorsese, doing a little cameo in The Irishman. And so I get to the sound check late, only about 5 minutes left in the sound check. And the Roundhouse Club is one of the best, most prestigious clubs in England. And it happened to be a very big crowd that night. And it might have been raining and they wanted to let the crowd in. But 5 minutes before the sound check ended, I get a phone call. Paul McCartney might be coming to the show. Wow, right? I mean, So I said, man, we better prepare something quick just in case. And I threw together a quick Little Richard arrangement of I Saw Her Standing There, an early Beatles song. And I knew Paul was a fan of Little Richard because without Paul McCartney and the Beatles, I never would have heard of Little Richard,
Right.
He turned me on to our entire first decade and a half of music in America. So sure enough, he shows up, and I said, "Wow, man, listen, it's such an honor for you to be here. I know you're working all the time these days. You never go out, never socialize anymore. You're here with your great wife, Nancy. Please sit with my wife, Maureen. Enjoy the show. Don't feel any obligation to come on stage, And I thought that was that, and I'm taking the encore, and my roadie runs up and says, "Paul's coming on." Like, wow. He comes on with a guitar, never having heard what we're going to do, no rehearsal, no nothing. And bam, we did, we got into, I saw her standing there, and it was just wonderful. It was, one of the great thrills of my life. I had, he had come on stage with us at Hyde Park with the E Street Band,
right,
which was thrilling. And of course, tonight they pulled the plug on us.
Yeah.
And then he invited me and Bruce on stage with him at Madison Square Garden, which was thrilling. But coming on my stage, endorsing my music and my band was just the most unbelievable experience of my life.
That's good.
Anyway, so it put me in an extra Beatle mood than usual, and we're going through England, and here comes Liverpool, which always puts you in a Beatle mood anyway. About 5 days before the Liverpool show, I'm thinking to myself, I remember the Beatles when they first started, did this crazy thing that could only happen in England. They would do these lunchtime sets where the local secretaries and clerks and, shopkeepers or whatever would bring their lunch to the Cavern. Then the Beatles would play for half an hour,
Brian Epstein too, right?
Like a crazy thing to do, right? So I said, call up the Cavern and tell them I want to do a lunchtime set, We're playing Saturday night, and Saturday afternoon we'll do a lunchtime set, So they said, like, oh, well, okay, we haven't done that for 40 or 50 years, but let's give it a shot. And, and so we get there, and now they have two rooms now at the Cavern. They have the one, they had to rebuild it, and they rebuilt it pretty much where it was, supposedly with the same bricks. I mean, the first time I got to the Cavern, it was a parking lot. A whole other story. Anyway, yeah, they rebuilt it in the same location, supposedly exactly the same. That narrow room that we all have seen in the one Beatle film.
Yeah, right behind me.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Them doing some other guy. So that's still there, but then they built a bigger room, where most bands play, and that's where Paul McCartney played when he did it. And of course, they assumed that's where I would play because I had a 15-piece band. And I was like, no, I gotta have the arches. I gotta have the arches.
Of course, iconic.
So we barely fit the rhythm section on that stage, and it was like a partition, and we put the horns and girls in the hallway.
Yeah.
We couldn't see them, so I'm not sure how we ended the songs.
That's why you're yelling to them, "Are you all right?" Is that why on the album you're yelling to them, "Are you all right?" Can't see. That's hysterical.
You literally can't see them at all.
Right.
You can see it in the DVD kind of. Anyway, so decided to do half the set of Beatles songs with horns, since we had the horns, and most people, you don't hear those songs very often. You don't hear "All You Need Is Love" live, or
Beatles never did them.
Right.
No, got to get you into my life,
Good morning.
Half horn songs and half songs that they would have covered at the Cavern, like Larry Williams and Arthur Alexander. So that was it, man. Just a fun idea, spontaneous idea. I hadn't played any Beatles songs since my high school band. I mean, my life has taken more of a turn, towards soul music and whatever. But you just don't play Beatles songs. I mean, why would you, right? And so it's just so much fun. So much fun.
So we'll go back to the Cavern a little bit because we want to talk about the album and the set list. It's amazing, and the documentary, because it really should be seen and heard.
Definitely.
But let's go back a little bit to Jersey when you're 14 years old. Rob, I know you had a question.
Steven, what happened on February 10th, 1964?
Every American had a band in their garage. Every single American kid had a band in the garage, as opposed to 48 hours earlier when there was no bands in America.
All Bobby Rydell people.
I know this is hard to imagine, but I'm telling you the truth. You went to your high school dance. It was an instrumental band. Maybe the sax player would sing one song, maybe, some ballad, but there were no bands, and suddenly the band thing was, and that was so appealing to me, and I guess 100 million others, the 72 million others that saw it on Ed Sullivan. it was something different. It was just a completely different communication rather than the typical single person, which is it's all about me, you know, or the doo-wop groups, you know, or the instrumental groups, you know. This was just guys playing and singing, and it was friendship. It was communicating, you know, family and the team and the posse, the gang, you know, and ultimately communicated community, and that's what immediately struck me, you know. But I must say, and I always have to add this because they were so sophisticated at that point. Now, keep in mind, we discovered the Beatles halfway through the career. They had started in '57 and were gone by '69. And by '64, they were really good. I mean, the harmony was perfect. You know, the hair was perfect. The clothes, you know, unlike anything we'd ever seen, and just they were just perfect in every way. So they kind of revealed this new world, which was extremely exciting to freaks and misfits like me, who finally, you know, maybe found something that we could relate to, you know, in the world. But luckily, you know, but it was just a little too perfect to say, okay, you know, I want to do that. I think I can do that. You know, it was just a little too alien and too sophisticated. And luckily for us, 4 months later, the Rolling Stones come.
Yeah.
And you know, and they're kind of wearing what they feel like. It looks very casual. The hair is not perfect except for Brian Jones. There's no harmony at all. You know, they're like the first punk band, really, and they make it look easier than it is. You know, and so you know, as I like to put it, the Beatles showed us a whole new world, and the Rolling Stones invited us in. You know?
It's kind of cool to hear you say it that way too, Stephen, because you know, you obviously were into music before you saw the Beatles, but and you've even worked with some of the people from that period before. You know, you were with the you know, with Dion and Little Kings and, you know, and that kind of situation. So you were already in music. You know, you hear a lot of guys talk about like almost that the Beatles woke them up to music, but you already had a foot firmly in rock and roll by that point, pretty much. It's just that newness, like you said, of how they put it across. That's like really, that's kind of cool to hear.
Well, I was only a kid buying singles at that point. I mean, you know, I was 13 when they came. So, you know, I started buying singles maybe a year or two before. You know, I had, you know, Four Seasons, Sherry, and,
right.
You know, probably the first three singles, the first two. Big Girls Don't Cry, you know, Duke of Earl.
Did you feel like you chart on Beatles versus the Four Seasons? Did you have the?
Yeah, because one of the singles was on VJ with the you know, since our geniuses rejected their first four singles.
Where are those guys now? Well, they're probably dead now, but I mean, they could have been very rich and dead.
But it's very understandable they did. And actually, if they had brought him in earlier, you know, maybe the kickoff doesn't happen the way we know and love.
You never know.
Yeah, it's hard to figure. But
yeah.
Did you really get kicked out of high school for having long hair?
Yeah. I mean,
what's long?
I think I got kicked out. I think I got kicked out of school and then got kicked out of the house. or it might have been the other way around. I'm not sure, but it happened pretty much simultaneously. Yeah.
So you were listening to the Beatles, and you said that the Stones came, but you were also listening to other British bands too, weren't you?
Oh yeah. No, the British invasion was everything. I mean, you know, one after the other. Beatles, Dave Clark 5. At that time, Herman's Hermits, who should be taken more seriously. You know, and of course, you know, the Kinks, the Animals, the Yardbirds, the Who. You know, Stones and Hollies, you know, one after the other. And with an occasional duo like a Chad and Jeremy, Peter and Gordon, or an occasional Dusty Springfield or...
Oh, she was amazing.
Sheila Clark, yeah. But it was nothing but, you know, mostly British. Only a couple American bands survived it, which were the Beach Boys and the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
And, of course, soul music. Soul music, you know, flourished right alongside. And what people forget is, you know, we had 7 or 8 or 9 rock and roll TV shows on which was unbelievable, for a year and a half, 2 years. And you'd have, the Kinks would come on and Smokey Robinson would come on, the Stones would come on and Curtis Mayfield, rock, soul. Almost all the shows did that, just naturally, organically. So I grew up very much with that rock and soul thing happening simultaneously, which ended up being Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. It was,
right.
Basically a guitar rock band with soul horns. So I kind of got integrated in my head and kind of stayed that way.
And Shindig was doing all kinds of great arrangements live on TV too. They were mixing and matching. Jack Good was throwing everybody in the mix there with that. Yeah,
and the great Shindogs house band and the great Blossoms with Darlene Love. Great stuff everywhere you looked. I mean, we were just so lucky, man. We were the luckiest generation to grow up with that Renaissance period going on.
Now, Steven, you pulled for the live album, for the new album, From Macca To Macca, you pull Soldier of Love out of the BBC, from the Beatles BBC archive. Yeah. And
I don't know why. That's just the one song they didn't record in the studio, and it's just such a natural, perfect Beatles song,
Yeah.
And it was completely obscure. Nobody ever heard of Arthur Alexander. And he's one of the 5 artists that was covered by both the Beatles and Stones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the BBC version is terrific. So not a lot got lost. I mean, it's a great version.
Yeah.
And the Stones, and you mentioned the Stones and the Beatles together. I mean, they really were pushing a lot of the Motown artists and a lot of artists that I hate to say it, but little white kids like me, we're not really listening to until we heard it on Beatle records. And then you threw some of, like you just mentioned, you threw some of those songs in the set list, and maybe that'll carry on when, by now people have heard of Larry Williams and Arthur Alexander, but you hadn't heard of any of them when you were a kid, until obviously, some of the groups had played them. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're all, the entire British invasion was doing that,
Yeah.
Every single band, even after they started writing themselves. I mean, people forget this, but the Beatles were doing covers to their 5th album.
Yeah.
Right through Help. I mean, long after they were recognized as 2 of the greatest songwriters in the world, they're still doing covers.
Yeah.
Because they just loved it. They loved that stuff, and that kept their. I think for them it just kept their identity strengthened. And they both the Beatles and Stones just were so great at it. Just great cover artists.
You mentioned that about people covering the Beatles, Steven, and how a lot of people don't do it. But it's interesting that, when you're out with the E Street Band, when you're with your band, you'll do the Searchers, you'll do, every time you walk into the room, Needles and, et cetera, all this stuff. Is there a reason why you kind of, the Beatles are not, you'll do Twist and Shout, but not a lot of Lennon McCartney originals? Is there a reason why kind of like, you tend to go either earlier or around, but you guys never really covered Beatles until now, which is,
I mean, to tell you the truth, they're too tough. They're not easy, man. I think it's from them. When they're in Hamburg, they're doing 6 sets a night, 7 nights a week. It's really hard to believe for months at a time. I mean, let me tell you something. That is work, man. And I just think, and they did this, 57, 58, 59, 60, 3-4 years. Okay. Before they even got in a studio. And they kept doing it, by the way, through 62. So, I think by the time they started writing, they had absorbed that stuff to such a degree in their DNA, because, other than the E Street Band, they're the second longest, gestation before happening, before recording, before getting big in the industry. The Beatles are really, I think, the second longest gestation after us. It took It took us like 7 years, I think, to get in the recording studio. It took them almost 4 or 5, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a long time. The Stones were only 2 or 3 years, most bands are only a couple of years and they
Good point.
get it together. But the Beatles, so I think by the time they started writing, out of boredom, they just started innovating and the chord changes on their bridges and modulations they're doing, incredible stuff. I'm telling you, all the way, pretty much from day one, pretty much. So it's not so easy just to, hey, let's do that song and start playing it,
Yeah.
It's and that's the reason I'm telling you right now. They're just more sophisticated than the rootsier, pop stuff of the 50s and 60s, which we can do from memory,
right?
Literally.
Right. Mother's
we may
milk.
have to rehearse a bridge. So occasionally you'll see us rehearsing a bridge or something, in the middle of a stadium, but mostly, you can kind of just, remember it, So
you mentioned all the chord changes and all that good stuff. Did you follow them through their progression? All through every album seemed like they grew. Did you follow them as well, or did you move on? And
no, and the entire audience did.
Yeah.
And this is the most remarkable thing about the Beatles. Okay, you just put your finger on it. This is the one thing that never gets talked about. All right, they created the concept of evolution. All right, there's no such thing. If you look before that, there's no such thing. Okay, if you had a hit, the best thing you could do was to have another hit as close to the hit you just had. And that was pretty much true in the entire industry. You had somebody being innovative, like Frank Sinatra, I would say would be an exception. He was innovative. He had the first concept records and things like that. But basically, the concept of evolving, each record being some kind of noticeable, more sophisticated evolution, that was completely invented by the Beatles. And they don't get credit for that because everybody then followed that. It just naturally, you see the same thing with The Who, you see the same thing with the Kinks, the Stones and everybody else. Every record had to rise to their standards because they're the ones setting the standards.
Yep.
And if you notice, the standards dropped precipitously the minute the Beatles broke up. Okay,
that's actually kind of true.
I know it's true.
I mean, wow.
So they were setting the standards and setting the possible, what was possible.
Right.
All of a sudden they're using strings. Oh, we can use strings now. No one uses strings. Oh, wait a minute, they're using horns. We can use horns. They got a fiddle on some song. Oh, we can use a fiddle on. And then suddenly other people are doing these things. And that was them. That was something that they did just naturally, organically. Again, maybe they had ADD like I do, but they just naturally seemed to, be bored enough to just evolve, and they just kept doing it pretty much to the end, with a little dip into nostalgia for Let It Be maybe or something, but even Abbey Road, which was the real last album, has had innovations on that actually.
Definitely.
And the White Album, I mean, the White Album was so we always talked about it. It didn't really go up in progression, but it was so eclectic and different. I'd never heard anything like Honey Pie by the Beatles, or then you get, Wild Honey Pie. And that just blew your mind. Some of the stuff on that, I was 8 years old when that thing came out, or 6 years old, and I had it. And Lord knows, I had no idea what to think of that album. I loved it, but it scared the hell out of me in some ways. It was a weird album.
Yeah, that was kind of leveling off. I mean, 67 was their peak, in my opinion. I mean, aside from Sgt. Pepper, the three singles of 67 were just ridiculous. Ridiculous. Strawberry Fields, All You Need Is Love, and The Walrus, right?
Not bad.
And not bad B-sides either.
Right.
I mean that's a career in itself. I mean I think that's the peak. That's probably the peak of inventiveness and evolution. And then kind of settled off a little bit for what came after that, pretty much. Maybe with the exception of It's All Too Much, which may have been the peak of it all. But
that's fun to hear.
But they were doing that naturally. They just did it naturally, and everybody had to follow it, and keep up.
Yeah.
You talked about It's All Too Much. So I had read that your favorite was George in the beginning.
Yeah. I related to him. I've always kind of related to the guy a little bit in the background, and I never really was a front man. I didn't have the front man inclination, So yeah, he was my favorite Beatle growing up, and his Indian songs, his 3 Indian songs, I think are just remarkable and invented world music, and will be, I think, maybe the songs that last the most, last the longest in some ways. But they're so incredible. I think Within You Without You is the center of Sgt. Pepper, really, and really was really captured the essence of the zeitgeist of that Summer of Love. Was so much a part of Eastern philosophy at that point, and so it's really such an important part of the makeup of Sgt. Pepper.
Sure.
Stephen, did that? Obviously the music affected all of us, and but did you kind of, as you were growing up, go into and look into anything that the Beatles were looking into? Did you look into Eastern philosophy? Did you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you
definitely, definitely. That's where I learned all about Hindu philosophy and Taoism was from George Harrison, for sure. Yeah, and Book of the Dead, from Tomorrow Never Knows, or she said, or whatever. One thing after the other. Yeah, whatever they were talking about, they were gods, and that was my religion. So whatever they said, I was going to do, and
And that takes us right back around, like you were saying, from Macca to Mecca. So, that great quote in there, if the Beatles were the religion, like you said.
Liverpool, my Mecca.
That's great.
So I have to bring up The Sopranos for one question, because it relates to music. Most people, know you're in The Sopranos, Sylvio Dante, and it's an amazing character, but you got that audition because of your connection to rock and roll, right?
Well, yeah, I was inducting the Rascals into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and and Chase happened to be watching.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's a
big Rascals fan, huh?
Yes, I was. We've had some problems since then, but
but you still can't discount their greatness.
No, greatness, and and I was very proud of the Broadway show that I wrote, directed, and produced for them, and I'm still very, very close with Eddie Brigatti. But
it was beautiful. We'd love to have Eddie on the show. Talk about somebody fun and talk to, man. Do you know how? It was a beautiful production, Stephen. It was really just absolutely tremendous.
Yeah, thank you. That was the peak of my creativity. That
was
show.
Just something very, very special. And again, even the Rascals, talking about their name being on the board at Shea Stadium.
Yes, they were in the dugout watching the show.
Yeah, and the Sid Bernstein promoted them at that show.
Yeah, he was a manager at the time.
So let's get back to the Cavern. We said you had a set list. How did you pick the set list? I know you said you did some that were covers and that the Beatles did. Some did you talk a long time about it, or did you just say, what, band, all 15 of you, we're going to do these?
Well, yeah, I thought about it for a minute, and you know, there's not a whole lot of Beatles songs with horns. You know, it's probably only I don't know, you know, not less than a dozen, certainly. You know, so I looked at them all, you know, and I picked the four I thought would be best, and then the covers were endless. You know, there was quite a list. There's a list actually. You know, everything the Beatles have ever done is you know. It's available.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I mean, can you believe there's pictures of the day Paul McCartney met John Lennon at that backyard carnival thing?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a picture of that. I mean, it's unbelievable when you think about it. But anyway, so you know, just I looked at the list, and the only thing I knew we're going to do was some other guy. You know, that's the only thing I knew we had to do, because that's the only Beatles film. That's an obscure song by Richie Barrett, co-written with Lieber and Stoller, by the way.
Yep.
And Richard Barrett was a famous cat producer and piano player, and he had a couple of solo singles. We actually had him come in and play on the Juke second album. We reunited the Coasters and Drifters and Five Satins, and we had Richard Barrett come in. It was I wrote my first doo-wop song.
Wow.
And called First Night, and we had Richard Barrett play on it. Richard Barrett played the triplets on the Chantels. Maybe you know, maybe you know, the first girl group hit was the Chantels, and he produced it and played piano. We had him come in, but anyway, it was his song, his solo record, and I knew we were going to do that, you know, and then I wanted to do Arthur Alexander's, you know, The Soldier of Love, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
You know, Larry Williams stuff is so great, and John Lennon, you know, it's very hard to, and very rare that you actually can outdo the original record, you know.
Oh yeah.
But that's a close call on that one, I tell you. You know,
And Twist and Shout too.
to some extent, Twist and Shout was a big one for me, though. The Isley Brothers,
Yeah.
I wore that record out. Okay,
Oh, cool.
and, you know, which is not easy.
No.
That early vinyl was like concrete. Okay, I wore it out. Okay, that's how.
Oh, yeah.
So to me, I didn't like the Beatles version for a long, long time.
Wow.
Yeah. I just couldn't. It didn't
Right.
add up for me. But looking back on it now, you know, you're not wrong. John does a great version of that.
Vocals amazing on that.
But slow down, man. John changes it a little bit. He actually improves it. You know. So that was one I wanted to do, and then well, what else? And then Boys. You know, Boys was, you know, I figured we'd do one for Ringo. Ringo's greatest vocal. And it's Ringo's greatest vocal because he had been doing it with Rory Storm for 5 years before he did it with the Beatles. So he's really quite comfortable with that song. Yeah.
We always said that, you know, when you listen to the Please Please Me album with Boys on it, sonically, it sounds so amazing, even for back in 1962, you know. Yeah. Wow. I mean, the drums also. George Martin and the engineers knew what to do, because Ringo's vocal on that and the drumming and the sound of the drumming is just amazing.
It's a killer track. It's one of the most exciting early Beatles tracks, you know. And I'm always fighting with him because he won't do that drum part. And in fact, I saw an early version of a TV show, very early, with Ringo doing Boys with the Beatles on a TV show, and he didn't do the drum part then either. You know, and I had a fight with him, you know, a little bit, you know, like, you know, as much as I'm going to fight with him, I'm like, Ringo, that is one of the coolest drum parts ever done. It, you know, it just is, you know.
Right. Of course.
It's just so powerful, you know.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do it. He won't do it.
Well, he changed the arrangement on it. You do Little Steven's Underground Garage Network, not the show. You do the show too, but you do the network. Where do the Beatles fit in with that? Because what songs have you added that maybe other stations haven't added concerning the Beatles as a guy who runs the station?
Well, I don't know. My song list now must be close to 6,000 songs. So,
Wow.
you know, most FM stations are like 300.
Right.
You know?
Right. In rotation.
So, I mean, I'm playing. I would say, you know, everything except the ballads, probably. You know.
Wow.
Quite a few. I don't know how many. I don't know how many Beatles songs are on the list, but I can find out really quick. But you know, it's a lot. I mean, we don't play very many slow songs at all in the format. You know.
Yeah.
Although You Gotta Hide Your Love Away is in there though, which is it's just too great.
Cool.
But you know, I think we probably play more Beatles songs than the ones we don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How many are there? It's like 200 songs altogether, or 200.
About that, yeah.
Yeah.
206 or whatever it is.
I bet you it's well over 100. You know.
Wow.
That's tremendous.
So, you know, take your pick. I mean,
Yeah.
you're lucky to hear the Beatles these days. Period.
That's true. No, you're right.
You know, you might hear what? You might hear "Hey Jude" or what? I don't know.
I mean, there's really classic rock stations or not even classic hit stations anymore. And the rest of them, you know, AC doesn't play any soft Beatles anymore.
Right.
Maybe there's no such thing as an oldie station anymore. They've gone from, you know, 70s, 80s, 90s. So anything from the 60s is a mistake if it gets on the air. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
We know what you mean. Yeah. But you're right. It is. It's amazing. You know, you could hear Aha all day. But
and I have to get my 2 cents in and said, and nobody's going to be playing the pretty things but Stevens.
Exactly.
We play quite a few groups that no one's ever played.
No one plays. That's all. That's why it's again.
No one's ever heard the MC5. You know.
Right.
Or the Stooges, or the New York Dolls, you know.
Johnny Thunder Band.
I think I heard like Midnight to 6 Man or something like that on the station at one point, and my head exploded. I mean, you're playing stuff that nobody's going to play.
And there's a couple of other bands that didn't invade from the invasion. You know, like Creation. People don't know Creation.
Right.
Fantastic. You know.
Right.
The Move. You know, people.
The Move is great.
People don't know the Byrds, you know, the BIRDS Byrds.
Right.
You know, Rodney Wood's first band. Right. Terrific band. I mean, great singer, Ronnie Wood was a good guitar player in 1964. Okay. All right. I mean, he goes way back when he's like 15. He was already good.
Was he that young when he was in that band? He was like 15,
16. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, because we didn't meet him till he played bass with Jeff Beck.
Yeah, right.
Which would have been 67, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Wow. Yeah. And so, you know, there was quite a few, you know, great, you know, and a few others, you know, more obscure, you know, like the Action. And, you know, the Eyes and people
Fleur
like that.
de Lis.
Yeah. Fleur de Lis, you know, terrific records. But you know, but the American bands, you know, didn't get much airplay, you know, even groups like Rhinoceros and Moby Grape, you know, never got the airplay they deserved, you know.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your friendship with Ringo and you had fights with him. We ever going to see you as an all-star?
No, you're never going to see me as an all-star, and I'll tell you why. I have no hits.
Oh, that's not true.
But you walk on stage and people know who you are, and you're a damn fine guitar player.
Yeah, I mean,
but his thing is based on, you know, playing the guy's hits, you know.
Right.
Come on, Steven. Forever. You know, it's been a long time. You know.
But no, I appreciate that. I mean, you know, good song. I'm not saying I didn't have any good songs. I got a lot of good songs, you know, but I have zero hits. You know, it's my mystique. You know, it's hard to keep one's mystique. You know,
that's true.
Anybody can have a hit. You know what I mean? And you know, but try having no hits and lasting 40 years. That's tough.
It's brilliant.
You know what? We also want to give you a chance to talk about some of the charity work you do, which is really cool. The Rock and Roll Foundation, the Teach Rock, and the Little Kids Rock. You know, can you talk about that a little bit? Because I know it's important to you as well.
Yeah. We've been focusing on teachrock.org. We finally went public with it on the Soulfire tour. We've been working on it for 15 years, believe it or not. It's a music history curriculum. And we gave away 500 tickets every show for teachers for free. And we did a little seminar, and we registered. We're up to like 40,000, 45,000 teachers now.
Wow.
Basically, it's three missions. One was to keep the arts in the DNA of the education system, which we're doing, and it's really changes the entire education process. It's so much more successful. The second thing was to create a methodology that dealt with this new generation that's smarter than us and faster than us and has no patience, And we capture their attention by just asking them, who's your favorite artist? And they all have one. They're all into music, And whoever it is, we say, okay, now we're gonna trace back where they come from. Yeah. And they stay interested, If they say Beyonce, we say, okay, Beyonce comes from a woman named Aretha Franklin, And Aretha Franklin comes from Detroit. We talk about Detroit. And they're listening. And Aretha Franklin comes from the gospel church. We talk about that, and they're listening, She got involved with civil rights, and we talk about that, and they're listening. As long as you are on some common ground with these kids, they'll stay tuned in, But like I say, we gotta teach it we gotta teach these kids in the present tense. We can't say, if you learn this, someday you'll use it, which is what they did with us, right? Learn this now, and someday you'll use it, Forget it, okay? You got to give them a reason not to look at their device in 20 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
And have an answer, So the three things, keep the arts in the, all the arts classes got canceled, by the way, because of the No Child Left Behind legislation. That's how we started. I should have started with that. That's how we got, into it. So there's no arts classes in public education anymore. So it's important to keep the arts in the DNA. Secondly, create a methodology. And third, once we have enough, once we are in enough schools, we really want to affect the dropout rate, which is an absolute scandal. It's close to 50% in the poor neighborhoods. And after they drop out, 50% of those kids end up in the criminal justice system,
Yes.
I mean, it's just, it ain't right, So we're hoping, if a kid likes one class and one teacher, they'll come to school. So if we can hold them and keep them in high school, once they graduate high school, the statistics change considerably. Now they got a fighting chance. You know, so that's what that's all about. And now we're expanding. Now, we were registering teachers. Now we're registering entire school systems. The last thing I did before the quarantine was visit a partner school, kindergarten through sixth grade, where they're teaching our curriculum in every grade, and we're now the entire state of Connecticut has just been accepted. The town of Milwaukee, we got a few schools in Jersey, a few in California. So now we're trying to actually partner with entire school systems, and it's expanding all the time. So
wow,
that's very, very successful. Yeah, I'm happy about that.
No, that's absolutely great.
Yeah, I just want to toss in that Stephen, I was proud that I was on the board of the Long Island Music Hall of Fame, and we brought you in for the humanitarian, and we were glad that you were able to be there with us that night. It was really well deserved, and so anyway.
Stephen, I got a question for you. A few years ago, you did a sort of a major concert at Randall's Island, which I'm still waiting for it to be a movie, because I heard that it was going to be. My question for you is, you had Pete Best's band there, and I was wondering if that caused any problem with Ringo, and what did you think of the band?
I love his band. Pete Best's band is literally like you're in a time capsule, a time machine, and you get dropped back in '64. I mean, they have the tones of the guitars are '64. I mean, they're just terrific. No. One of my fantasies is actually to get Ringo and Pete Best together. You know, they've never met. You know, they've never spoken. And
That's unfortunate.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, and one of my hopes is someday to try and get them together. I don't know how.
Well, you got the Rascals back together. I mean,
Oh, no.
I was just about to say.
Believe me, the Middle East would be a snap.
Hell already froze over, thought out. Already.
But the Best family are you know, they opened a Casbah, you know, the very important Casbah where the last stop that the three Beatles, you know, the three Beatles, as you guys know, had no drummer, and the only way they were going to get to go to Germany was if they had a drummer, and everybody turned them down. And the last stop was the Casbah because the mother, whose name just escaped me, Mona, had them painted. You know, they painted the Casbah.
Cheap labor.
And you go to Casbah now, and they show you where they painted. They still have it. Yeah. And luckily, you know, people said yes, or you know, history would have been really different. Who knows what would have happened? Yeah,
really.
But they reopened the Casbah, and now they're turning it into some kind of bed and breakfast or something. They're expanding the house into a hotel, I think. So
yeah, just saw that on Facebook that they're working on.
Well, when you get Ringo and Pete together, you got to get Jimmy Nicol too. You know, just to come on and do a guest spot for a song, you know, and then throw him away like the Beatles did.
Keep him there just for a couple of hours and send him on.
Yeah, and then give him a watch and then send him on his way.
It's hard to believe, isn't it? We think back on that, you know, like
replacing a Beatle.
Yeah, like how about postponing the shows, right? like
well, George wanted to, and they said no, but you know that was all about the money.
Yeah, but they, you know, it just shows you how they were nervous about, you know, were they really going to make it or not? You know.
Sure.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
you got to make the bread while you can.
That's why they gave them $2 to make Hard Day's Night, because they figured, you know, they'll be lucky if they're still together by the time the movie comes out.
Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of the movie, I hate to tell you this, but we filmed it in 3D, which is going to, you know, 3D hadn't happened for like 20 years at that point. I was going to bring back 3D, and nobody had ever seen a concert in 3D.
Right.
Filmed the whole thing in 3D, and all that footage is missing.
Oh, wow. So you filmed the whole Cavern show in 3D?
No.
Randall's Island.
Oh, Randall's Island. Oh, we went back to that. Sorry. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was.
Okay.
I was at that show. That's the first time I ever saw Ricky Pop, and I was a little scared. To be honest with you.
How great would it have been? He runs and jumps up on the 3D camera. It would have been such an awesome.
He looks better than I do, and I'm much younger than him. Believe me.
That was an amazing day, though. I mean, it was. Libertines. I'm trying to think of who else was there. What a
we had I don't know how many 50 bands or something.
Yeah, just what a hell of a day of music.
I had a really great plan. You know, I had a special circular stage built.
Yeah.
You know, because I was going to do it like the old Alan Freed, Murray Decay shows, where, you know, three songs each. You know. And you know, and so the next band would be already set up on the turntable, and it broke like 3 bands in.
Gotta love technology.
We were scrambling the rest of the day, and there was a hurricane that day. That
rained.
And took a turn right for us.
It was amazing. The 3D cameras worked, but the motorized stage broke down.
I'm telling you, I couldn't believe it.
Oh, man.
So I want to tell people where you can get Macca to Macca, because it's a CD and DVD. And by the way, if people don't know, the DVD or the video, you have to see the video. And the one thing that Tony and I, we were talking off mic, we noticed right away that still comes across on the CD, but when you watch the DVD, the pure joy on your face.
Yes.
The joy. I mean, my God.
Nothing but fun. I mean, it was just like nothing but fun, you know?
Yeah.
It made no sense. You know, it was nothing to do with the so-called career, or nothing to do with, you know, with the Summer of Sorcery show, or you know, it was just a freaky thing to do because I just was a fan, and the band rose to the occasion. I mean, they learned those songs in 4 days, and and we're making it part of the package. It's also going to be part of the Soulfire Live package,
right?
Right. But for those who already have the Soulfire Live package, this is it's also separate,
right? Oh, that's
the
great.
Mecca To Macca part of
and it's on your label, Wicked Cool Records and Yumi, just so people know. Yep. But it's Macca To Macca, and it's really a really fun record and recording of, I guess, a really special time for you and the band.
Yeah, and I have to say, and I find this hard to believe myself, but on the Soulfire Live album, on Macca To Macca, and on the Summer of Sorcery coming in June, not one single note has been re-recorded.
Oh, no sweetening, huh?
That's nice.
Not one single note.
Thank
the
you.
band is unbelievable. I mean, it's one of the best bands in history. I mean, they just don't make mistakes. They don't make mistakes.
That's tremendous.
You also have a book coming out, right?
Yeah, end of September. We could talk more about that. Closer.
Yeah, we'll have you on again. We'll talk about the book.
Yeah, it's still a ways off.
Right.
That's okay.
What Beatles record do you go to when not your favorite, but which one to inspire you? You're going to start writing again, or you need an inspiration. What Beatles record do you go to?
Well, why don't we do it in the road? Of course.
I don't think there's any one because there's something on every one. I'm a little bit more partial to the earlier stuff.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
I mean, my favorite album is Help.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's my favorite seven. But my favorite 7 Beatles songs in a row on any Beatles album are on Help.
You're talking about the British version, right? Or the American?
Yeah.
The British version.
Yeah, side one is one of the best.
He loves
sides ever.
Ken Thorne. It's all Ken Thorne. Yeah.
We now count the British versions as the real thing with the Beatles, but we count the American versions with the Stones. So
yeah.
Because two of the best Stones albums don't exist.
That's true.
My 2 favorite Stones albums, which is 12 by 5 and December's Children, are strictly American albums.
Yeah.
And they're brilliant.
So we count the Stones, the American Stones, but the British Beatles are the official ones now. But
except maybe Rubber Soul, because that's a totally different album when you start with "I've Just Seen a Face" versus "Drive My Car."
Yeah, and I have to say, as much as I despise most of the time of people changing things, and it was really weird that the albums were different until Sgt. Pepper, which is ridiculous. I got to say that was not a bad move. That was not a bad move because of the folk rock thing at that time. I thought the Beatles are right there, man. Once again, leading the way with folk rock. And it turned out that the Capitol guy had stuck it on there. So that was a very rare time of a record company doing something strictly for mercenary reasons and turning out to be artistically not a bad idea. I got to say, But I know I love Help and I love the Beatles for Sale, which is one of my favorites because it's what I call it. Their Everly Brothers album.
Yeah.
Almost every song on it is got 2-part harmony and but you can't go wrong. Honestly, I don't play the last few hardly ever. I just don't for some reason. They're good. They're great stuff. Abbey Road.
The early stuff, the energy.
Even the White Album, it's not for me.
But the energy of A Hard Day's Night, and even with the Beatles, I mean, it starts off, my God, it won't be long, it's like full blast, even the American Beatles second album just kicks you in the face.
Yeah.
And Beatles for Sale, that 1, 2, 3 punch at the beginning. What is it? No reply, Babies in Black, I'm a Loser, or
those 3. And then, but then even if you keep going with I'll Follow the Sun and Rock and Roll Music, the 5, it's just that they're all great songs. So
terrific stuff. Really, you can't go wrong. Honestly,
All right. Well, we want to just thank you so much for being here. It's been a blast. We want to tell people, go out and buy Macca to Mecca. It's a really good recording, a really good release. So please go out and buy it. You will not be disappointed. And also, hopefully we'll have you on again and talk about the book. Also go to teachrock.org, right?
Yes.
To learn more about the foundation. And
by the way, it's free. It's free for teachers. It's free.
Oh, okay, cool. And I know a lot of teachers, I think Tony does too.
Reach out right through the website, teachers. Just reach out right through the site to you, or is there a?
Yeah, teachrock.org. They go to the site and they can sign up.
Brilliant.
And get it for free. Over 250 lessons.
Wow,
cool.
Brilliant.
Sounds great. All right. Well, we want to thank you again, and for the Fab Four Free For All, I have been your moderator, Mitch Axelrod. Joining me tonight have been my friend
Leonard
and
Tony Triguardo.
And we will see you again real soon.
Thanks
for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you, guys.
Fab 4 Free For All was edited and produced by Tony Triguardo at Word of Mouth Studios in Westbury, New York.
The opening and closing theme is My Dolly by the band The Badge, featuring longtime listener Jeff Slate, available on its debut album Digital Retro and recent Best Of compilation, as well as from the Fab 4 Free For All website.
Thanks for listening to Fab 4 Free For All.